This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Manarino.
Everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily, Pop Daily, and we have some breaking news that just happened a short time ago where the charges against Mayor Eric Adams have now been fully dropped with prejudice. This was a decision we've been waiting for from Judge Dale Ho. He put out a 78-page memo about this, his decision, and many were asking what took so long. Well, when you have 78 pages to sort through, that's what took so long, right? So what does it all mean for the mayor? He's been claiming he's done nothing wrong all along, and he said that this was actually holding him up from campaigning fully for his next reelection. So let's find out. Bring in Duncan Levin. He's a former federal prosecutor. Duncan, great to see you. Thank you for joining us here. And I want to talk more about this decision. 78 pages from Judge Dale Ho, right? Still making my way through 78 pages here. But what were your key takeaways from it, specifically the with prejudice part?
Well, a lot of it is what they call dicta, which is really just, and it was scathing in its breadth and scope. But at the core of it is really something that could have been boiled down to one paragraph, which is that the judge said that the Department of Justice could not hold these charges over the mayor's head, and that it had to be dismissed with prejudice, which is more than what the Department of Justice was asking for. They were asking for it to be dismissed without prejudice so that they could theoretically hold it over his head. The judge said absolutely not, that is not something that is permissible, and went beyond what they were asking. But the rest of the decision is really just the judge's opinions about why the Department of Justice is acting inappropriately. But it really, it basically cements the extraordinary power that the executive branch has to end prosecutions for whatever reason it wants or no reason at all. I mean, remember, this Department of Justice did not say they were dismissing these charges or seeking to dismiss these charges because they weren't true or because the mayor didn't break the law. They were saying really that the mayor couldn't focus on his job with these charges hanging over its head, and that the charges were political in nature. And that's really why the Department of Justice under Trump moved to have these charges dismissed. But it's not a real full exoneration of Mayor Adams' conduct. It's just a full dismissal of the charges against him. And the judge was, pretty furious about the whole situation.
Yeah, of course, the mayor is going to take a victory lap, right? He's going to say, well, look, the charges were dismissed. I did nothing wrong. I said that all along. I pled not guilty. But what does it say, I guess, larger about the precedent that it's setting, right? Because the federal government was looking for the charges to be dismissed without prejudice, meaning the charges could come back at a later time, which is what was kind of hanging over the mayor's head. There was this whole idea that if that happened, he would still owe the federal government something in terms of the migrant crisis and whether or not he would follow through with some promises made allegedly to the federal government. So what does that talk about, the precedent here about that?
Well, the precedent for Mayor Adams, and then there's the precedent generally for Mayor Adams. It's not a full and clear exoneration. And remember, Danielle Sassoon, who was the United States attorney who resigned in protest over this whole situation, when she was the United States attorney, her prosecutors told the same judge that they were still investigating Mayor Adams for additional conduct, and they were expecting to bring a superseding indictment. And so they still have a lot hanging over his head. And this decision by Judge Ho addresses these specific charges, that those can't be hanging over his head. But there is more uncharged conduct that we really don't know much about that has been announced to this judge. And that is still hanging over his head. And so it's not a real full exoneration for the mayor, but he's definitely going to take a victory lap. As to the more general precedential nature of this, I think it's going to embolden the Trump administration and the Department of Justice to say that there's really nothing judges can do to stop them from dismissing charges, from pardoning people, from commuting sentences in furtherance of their agenda. And if they want to do it for purely political purposes, there's really not much that the judicial branch can do to stop them. This really cemented that notion. Paul Clement, who was the independent counsel who came on, all but said that as well, that there's really not much that the judiciary can do to stop the executive branch from dismissing charges, that they really have the unilateral power to do it. And Judge Ho said that in his decision today. He said, look, if you don't like this, vote President Trump out of office, vote the administration out of office, but there's really not much that the courts can do to stop it.
So I want to just read a line here because it said, to be clear, the court again emphasizes that it does not express any opinion as to the merits of the case or whether the prosecution of Mayor Adams should move forward. The court notes only that it has no authority to require that it continue, right? So what was the whole thing of bringing this other attorney in to kind of advise Judge Ho on the merits and how he should proceed? Can you talk a little bit about the procedure that went into today?
Sure. I mean, look, our system is based on an adversarial relationship between prosecutors and defense attorneys. And our system is based on the notion that the truth will emerge from two parties who are able to, attack weaknesses in each other's position, and that juries will be the arbiters of truth, that judges will be able to be the arbiters of the law. And in this situation, both the prosecution and defense were acting like defense attorneys. The judge was looking at the prosecution, who was asking these charges to be dismissed, looking at the defense counsel, who was joining in the application, and he wasn't getting any of that, the adversarial nature of it. And he asked Paul Clement, who's one of the most respected attorneys in this country, who's argued innumerable cases before the Supreme Court, who's a brilliant lawyer, to take an independent look at it, and not to argue it as a defense attorney, but just to be a trusted outside advisor to the court, which is something the courts do. And so he looked at the situation and basically guided the court towards the decision that it reached today, which is that there's really not much that they can do that the court can do to stop it, but that the problem lay in this dismissal without prejudice, and that was a problem beyond that.
So we're talking about the victory lap, right? And we just got the statement now from Alex Spiro, who's the attorney for Mayor Eric Adams. Let me read it to you and get your thoughts on this, right? He said the case against Eric Adams should have never been brought in the first place. And finally today, the case is gone forever. From day one, the mayor has maintained his innocence, and now justice for Eric Adams and New Yorkers has prevailed. When you hear that, and I'm listening to what you're saying, that there were merits to the case, but it seems as if it was dismissed because of the fact that the mayor couldn't fully govern. What do you make of the statement?
It's his opinion, but it's really not anything that either the court, really frankly, or the Department of Justice was saying. When the Department of Justice issued its memorandum to the court, it specifically said it's not based on the merits of the case. It's based on the fact that politics shouldn't have been ingested into the political system, into the criminal justice system, that the mayor can't govern with these charges over its head. It never said anything about the merits of the case. And I think Judge Ho is clear today that this really has nothing to do with the merits of the case. You just read part of the opinion that explicitly states that. Obviously,
he says, Duncan, he says himself, the judge says that himself. He says some will undoubtedly find today's decision unsatisfying, wondering why, if Department of Justice reasons for dropping the case are so troubling that the court does not simply deny the motion to dismiss altogether. So he is admitting that there is going to be some public outcry about the decision.
It's unjust from the position of whether he committed the crime or not. But it's, the court reached the conclusion it did because it felt like that was the power it was given under the United States Constitution. There's separation of powers here. And this is a decision that rests on the court's ability to oversee the executive branch with regard to to dismissing or bringing a criminal charge. The judiciary doesn't bring the charges. They have very limited power in what they can do. And this decision is about the power of the courts to stop the administration from doing certain things. And here the court said, we have a restraint on our own power. It doesn't have anything to do with whether the mayor is innocent or guilty.
Do you think that some might see this as a bit of a bargain, that the dismissal of the indictment was in exchange for some kind of immigration policy? Are you looking at that in totality of what you're saying right now and wondering if that could be what some may think, since it was the premise of it all?
I don't think that has anything to do with the judge's decision, but it has a lot to do with the Department of Justice's decision to drop the charges. I think it's pretty obvious, just on the face of it, what they were trying to accomplish with the mayor. I mean, we all saw the Fox News interview where the mayor was sitting next to Tom Homan, who's directing the president's immigration policies, which looked like a hostage video. I mean, I think we all can read into whether this was in exchange for the mayor's cooperation on carrying out the Trump administration's agenda. The voters will have an opportunity to look at whether Mayor Adams deserves another term in office. It's a political question. But as to the criminal justice question, I think that there's a proper limitation on this court's power to stop this. But what the Department of Justice did is wrong from beginning to end. And I think that's why you saw so many prosecutors resigning in protest over it. I think that people are absolutely right to question that.
Yeah, I think when you look at all of it, including what you just said there with the former federal prosecutors resigning, his own team resigning, there was much to be said. And I just want to sum it up with what the judge kind of said here, that the public interest would not be served by such an outcome because the route would simply postpone finality in the case to a date uncomfortably close to the June 24th mayoral primary, which is kind of what now the mayor is going to start focusing now on, which is his campaign for re-election. Duncan, you are fantastic, former federal prosecutor, and you're a current attorney at Levin and Associates. Levin and Associates.
Yeah,
Levin and
thank you
Associates.
so much.
There you go. Great to have you here, and we'll see you on PIX and Politics on Friday as well. But great perspective there, Duncan. Good to talk to you. And everybody, we're going to have a full recap of what's happening right now. Our Henry Roslov is out right now getting reaction. Of course, mayoral candidates that Mayor Adams is up against, quickly throwing in some reaction as well. So stay tuned right here on PIX 11 Plus, as well as PIX11.com. And then Henry will have a full report tonight, beginning on the PIX 11 News at 4 p.m. But we are following this very closely. In the meantime, we'll see you back on PIX and Politics Daily tomorrow. I'm Dan Manarino. Enjoy the rest of your day.